Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. Today, we're picking up where we left off on Donald Trump's career. Last time, we looked at his path through business and into politics. Now, we're diving into his presidency. A time, well, everyone agrees, was full of intense scrutiny, some very deliberate moves, and moments that were, frankly, unprecedented. I'm joined again by our political analysis expert to help us unpack this really complex period.
Great to be back. Yeah, this time we're really going to get into some of the, let's say, defining moments, the controversies, the game changers, the things that really shaped his time in office.
It often felt like watching a nonstop drama unfold, didn't it? From day one, his presidency seemed marked by these bold, sometimes really surprising actions, his constant battle or maybe dance with the media, and just a very unconventional way of doing things. So thinking about the source material we've looked at, what stands out as the defining element right from the start? What was job one, according to the analysis?
Well, the sources make it pretty clear, I think, that it was never going to be business as usual. That was obvious from the get-go. A key thread seems to be this deliberate strategy.
Yeah.
Maybe described as creating a kind of productive chaos.
Productive chaos? How so?
Well, it wasn't just noise for noise's sake.
Mm-hmm.
It often seemed designed to keep opponents off balance, keep the media scrambling. Like one analyst put it, it was the political equivalent of an unreturnable serve. Hard for the usual media cycles to even keep up.
Okay, I see.
And central to that was his ability to just dominate the headlines. Right? And always steer the conversation back to what resonated with his base. That really set the tone for the whole 4 years.
That makes sense. And that idea of, establishing a new kind of normal right away, that really seemed to play out in those first 100 days. Let's talk about that initial blitz. We saw things like the travel ban executive order almost immediately, caused huge protests at airports, massive confusion. And then there was the big Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which completely changed corporate taxes. It felt like a whirlwind. How much of that rush was about projecting that man of action image versus, actual long-term policy goals?
I think those first 100 days were definitely about sending a very loud message. Trump wanted to show he was different, not a typical politician, but someone who got things done.
A man of action, as you said.
Exactly. The speed he pushed things like the travel ban, which, let's remember, hit immediate, serious legal walls, or the huge tax cuts.
Yeah.
It definitely signaled a kind of act first, deal with the fallout later mentality, according to some analyses we looked at.
And very confrontational.
Very. Directly challenging what he called the establishment. It was a clear signal. The old rules didn't apply. Speed and decisiveness were the priorities, not necessarily building consensus first.
And speaking of keeping people off balance, his relationship with the media, that was something else entirely.
Oh, absolutely.
Our sources really dig into how he often seemed to control the narrative just by, stewing the pot, generating controversy. How strategic was that constant media engagement, do you think?
The analysis suggests it was deeply strategic, not just reactive. He seemed to have this innate understanding, maybe from his TV background, that the news cycle thrives on conflict.
And he certainly provided it.
Constantly.
Yeah.
But it was more than just that. Sources point to how he mastered creating these event-driven news moments. A tweet, an off-the-cuff remark.
And it would dominate for days.
Exactly. It let him bypass the traditional media filters, speak directly, and just stay front and center, nonstop.
Even though it drew so much criticism.
Right. But from his perspective, or at least the perspective offered in some analyses, it wasn't about being liked by the press. It was about relevance, about controlling the conversation, keeping supporters fired up, and keeping opponents, busy reacting to him.
Okay, let's shift to foreign policy. Another area where convention often went out the window. Engaging directly with Kim Jong-un in North Korea, the escalating trade disputes, particularly with China. It was a very different approach than past administrations. How do you assess his impact on global diplomacy based on our sources?
Well, one really interesting insight is how his unpredictability, which many saw as a negative, could actually be framed as a strength on the world stage.
Yeah.
At least that's one interpretation.
How so?
Take North Korea. Meeting Kim Jong-un face-to-face, that was a massive gamble. Many called it a publicity stunt. But for Trump, it was this bold, unconventional move. It broke decades of established protocol. From his viewpoint, it put him in charge directly.
And China. The trade war wasn't just about tariffs, was it?
No, not solely. Our sources suggest it was a calculated strategy to reassert what he saw as American economic power, to challenge global trade practices he viewed as unfair. It was about showing strength through confrontation.
So less focus on traditional alliances.
Much less. It seemed more about shaking up the existing order, challenging multilateral agreements, and fundamentally trying to reposition America's role again, all viewed very differently depending on your perspective on global politics. Success is definitely in the eye of the beholder there.
During his term, he also faced something unprecedented for a one-term president: 2 impeachments. How did those shape his presidency and maybe his public image?
Yeah, 2 impeachments. Quite extraordinary. Both really tested his political resilience, you could say. The first one centered on his dealings with Ukraine. The opposition clearly saw it as their chance to, well, take him down.
But it didn't quite work out that way for them, did it?
Not entirely.
Yeah.
Our sources detail how he managed to reframe it very effectively for his supporters. He painted himself as the victim of a partisan witch hunt.
And it became a rallying cry.
Absolutely. It paradoxically seemed to energize his base even more. Now, the second impeachment after the January 6th Capitol riot, that was arguably much more serious in its implications.
Yes, the context was very different.
Very different. But again, even in that incredibly charged situation, Trump used the process to reinforce his narrative, the outsider fighting against the swamp or the establishment.
So the impeachments didn't really destroy him politically, in the moment at least.
It seems not. In fact, as many analyses point out, they almost seem to solidify this sort of mythos around him, the guy who took on Washington and survived. Whether history judges that as resilience or as a serious cost to democratic norms, well, that's still very much being debated.
So let's bring it to the present. Looking back now that he's out of office, what's the lasting impact? Is he remembered more as, say, a transformative leader for his party, or primarily as this major disruptive force in American politics?
I think the consensus, looking across various analyses, is that he fundamentally transformed the Republican Party. There's really no question about that.
How so?
Well, he didn't just win an election. He reshaped the party's core ideology, brought in a whole new group of voters, many who felt left behind by traditional politics. He injected this potent brand of populism.
That appealed to the common person against the elites.
Exactly, that deep skepticism towards established institutions, both political and economic, it resonated powerfully. The Republican Party today is just. It's not the same party it was before Trump.
So his influence lasts beyond his term.
Oh, undeniably. He remains a hugely dominant force. He's profoundly shaped the direction of American politics, and that influence looks set to continue for the foreseeable future.
These insights have been incredibly helpful in navigating such a complex period. Before we wrap up, if you had to boil down the Trump presidency into just one single concise sentence based on everything we've discussed, what would it be?
One sentence.
Okay.
I'd say Trump's presidency was a fundamental reshaping of American political norms. He didn't just play the game. He changed the rules and redefined how power operates in Washington.
A powerful way to put it. Thank you so much again for sharing your analysis with us today.
My pleasure.
And a big thank you to all of you for tuning into the Deep Dive. We really encourage you to keep thinking about the long-term effects of this presidency, its ongoing impact on our politics. We hope you'll join us again as we continue to explore complex topics in future Deep Dives. Until next time.